Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that can shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 44-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Cathy, 52-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum. And change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded, and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present. Hey Cathy, how are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm coming to you from our kitchen today because there's roofers.
Why is that?
Yes, roofers next door making a lot of noise. They've also got a leaf blower. It's all just happening. So I've kind of moved. I hope you can't hear the background, but that's just life, isn't it, really?
It sure is. It's part of change, right? Like we just roll
We
with
just
it.
adapt. We pivot,
roll with
we
it.
change. That's right.
Hey, we've got someone pretty flipping amazing coming on to talk to us today. Do you want to know who it is?
I love her. I know, but you just tell me because I'm pumped.
Okay. We've got Cathrine Mahoney coming on, and she is super accomplished, super amazing. She's from the UK. She never leaves the house without a red lippy, and honestly, she looks sensational with it. Kath's called Sydney home for about the past 20 years after moving from the UK in 2000, partly on the advice from a horoscope column. She does love her, psychics. She's worked as a celebrity publicist. She currently hosts a podcast called So I Quit My Day Job. And she has had another podcast, Not Another Parenting, and another one, the 456 Club, that we were both on.
Yes, with Mamma Mia. It was a great one, that one.
It was incredible. We loved it. She has written a book called Currently Between Husbands. She's the ambassador for Raise organisation. It's a not-for-profit that partners with teens to be mentors. And she has just one son that she knows of called Louis.
Or Lewis.
Or Lewis. And she loves him to bits and she enjoys embarrassing him daily. She shares her son with former rugby league player and TV commentator Andrew Johns. She is a self-confessed oversharer whose only filter is the one that she uses on her Instagram photos. Can't wait to talk to her.
She's a legend. Her book is amazing. Let's welcome Kath Mahoney to the podcast. Hello, Kath. Welcome to The Change. It is so nice to see your happy face on my screen with that red lippy.
It's happy because school is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Happy days indeed. But Kath, other than school and being a mum, you have been through quite a bit of change in life. In terms of work, you were a celebrity publicist, you're now a writer, you've got a hit podcast, and you're an occasional TV panelist. How is this kind of portfolio career working for you and this freelance life?
Oh, look, I really love it. I made the change. It was 2019. It was just before COVID, and I quit my day job. I was working at Nova Radio. I was working with Fitzy and Whipper on The Breakfast Show. I'd been there for 4 years. I loved it. I'd been 20 years as a publicist. But I had this itching to kind of write and story tell and hear other people's stories. And so, I quit my day job and then I started a podcast called So I Quit My Day Job in early 2020. And I remember Apple picked it, as like the one to listen to this week. And it was the exact same week that the world had gone into lockdown with COVID.
Oh my goodness.
And so everyone had lost their job, or lots of people had, and I'm doing this bloody podcast swanning in the photo going, so I quit my day job. And people are like, who cares? People are dying and we're all losing our jobs. So I remember thinking, anyway, but it had set me up for working from home because I'd been doing it for a couple of months and I was right in the swing of it. But no, I love it. I had someone on the pod the other week and she's a freelancer and she said the only downside is the lumpy the lumpy income. And I thought, yeah, she's
Mm.
nailed it, because you'll get like a big lot. I mean, not like a J-Lo big lot, but you'll get an amount and you're like, yeah, look at me go. But you might not get anything for another 2 months, or the invoices that are outstanding, they are on a different payment system to your your expectations. So that would be something that that I do think, oh, I'd still quite like to win lotto and be a freelance. But
Yeah.
yeah, that aside, I love it. I love
Great.
creativity, and the space, and just yeah, I feel really, really grateful.
Oh,
Oh,
that's fabulous. And you get to have a coffee when you want and stuff.
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
yeah.
I go to the
And
toilet and even do emails from the toilet if I want. Although I did do that. Although I did do that at Nova sometimes. So yeah, that's both in and out the workforce.
Allowed.
so, so, Kath, aside from your personal high profile career, many people, especially NRL fans, will remember a time when you married a little known player, Andrew Johns. Like, I don't think many people know who he is. And you went from being someone who worked with celebrities to essentially a celebrity yourself. How did you find that experience? And I mean, that's huge, big change.
Yeah, look, yeah, I'm really grateful that it was before social media and
Mm.
sort of videos on phones, and a lot
Yes.
more of those kind of grabby moments that some people might experience now. It was really odd. It was also wonderful. You'd get free
Mm.
lunches and upgrades, and you'd meet lovely people. You'd also get crazy fans who would bump you out of the
Oh,
way for a photo, or I got stalked. Used to get
oh, really?
my car egged in
Oh,
Newcastle. So there was a
God.
bit of
What?
that. But I think in the main, because I was used to being a publicist around global stars. I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew's huge in sport, but I'm talking like a Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
or a Destiny's Child, that were sort of global and mobbed wherever they went. I think I was just really good at sort of being behind it, and
Yeah.
sort of
Mm.
almost being not a manager, a publicist around it, but I could step out of the way. You could kind of you could definitely be invisible, especially men. Men were just
Yeah.
so one-eyed on him. It was
Oh,
hilarious. You'd be like, God, I could take my clothes off, which would, be a horrendous thing to do. But they wouldn't have even, they would have just still clambered past me to meet,
oh,
this legend. So it was quite funny, and it was great because as soon as you left NRL based states, nobody knew him. Like, so
yeah.
Mm.
Melbourne, we loved going to Melbourne because nobody knew who he was, pretty
Yeah.
much. And then obviously traveling back to my home country, the UK, it was great. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was I think having the job I had set me up really well for what other people might have found weird.
Yeah. I know, I mean, I wasn't married to a footballer. My cousins were footballers actually. And we had some footballers share our family home, like they billeted essentially with us. He's also completely unknown, Matt Rogers. I can remember being out like in the nightclubs, and my cousins and the players, like they all used to kind of use me as their pretend girlfriend, because that sort of meant that other girls would sort of just leave them alone just for
The
5
super
minutes.
fans. Mm.
The poor guys, but, we always laugh and joke when we all get together that thank God it was at a time before social media, because it was just like now it's just awful. Like they live in
Mm.
an absolute petri dish, and it'd be just awful for
Mm.
you. But I'm imagining with your publicist background, you were able to kind of just put on like a professional hat and kind of go, oh, this is just happening. It's a part of our life, but it's not all of our life. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we had lots of private time, which was great. And
Mm.
you just knew to just put on a face. I remember we were at the top of the Arc de Triomphe. Andrew had like an injury. And we ended up being able to go to Europe in the European summer, which normally we couldn't because that's when the season is. And one of those days in Paris where you've walked too far since you've eaten, your feet hurt. Like, we were snappy and we were having a great argument at the top of the Arc de Triomphe. And I just remember just in the midst of it, this couple turned around and went, oh, can we get a photo with Joey? And I thought, can't believe, like, the one place you think is safe to have an argument, bloody NRL fans. Anyway,
Oh, they get everywhere.
we pretended we were fine and we took the photo. But yeah, I think it was interesting. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's classic, classic. But you guys married in 2007. You had baby Lewis. Is it Lewis? Yeah,
He
in
gets, yeah, Lewis or Louis, he gets a bit of
Louis or
both.
Lewis
Yeah.
in 2009, but then you separated in 2014. And it's a big question, it's a personal one, but it is a big change, obviously. How was that divorce process for you? And secondly, it's 10 years on this year. How do you feel about it all now?
Oh, look, I think time is a wonderful thing.
Mm.
Time and writing a book called Currently Between Husbands, which is
Great book, great book.
Great
very,
book.
very cathartic experience. Yeah, look, I think 10 years on, everything is just as it's. I'm a real believer in fate and the universe, and I believe everything happens for a reason. You can't sugarcoat the end of a marriage. It's horrible, whichever
Yeah.
way you look at it, however amicable you try and be. It's the end of something, and
Yeah.
it's not just the end of a relationship. It's often the end of parents living in the same house with their child or children. It's your identity changes. Like there was so much change. And I look back now, and when people want to sort of talk about their scenario, I sort of say, look, you've just got to get through it. There's no way past it. And the first 12 months, 18 months might take you 2 years, or be just a lot of firsts and a lot of change. But it all settles.
Mm.
I feel really grateful that Andrew and I met, that we had, I think, 13, 14 years of mainly a great relationship, and we have a beautiful son. So I'm really
Yeah.
grateful. I'm really grateful for the whole experience, which is easy to say now because it was a long time ago. But there was some ugly crying, let me tell you.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that all happened, was that close to the divorce part happened close to your 40th birthday, was that right or something? There's in the
Yeah.
book, there's a real kind of
Yeah.
moment where that tell us
Yeah,
about that.
the marriage, it came to an end early December, and I'm a Christmas Day baby, so it was
Oh,
sort of,
Yeah.
and we were still living in the same house. We hadn't. It was Christmas, it was holiday. We decided
Mm.
to just let Lewis, who I think was 5 at the time, just
Mm.
have a normal, in inverted commas, Christmas. But yeah, that certainly wasn't how I thought I was going to hit my 40s as a
No.
solo parent. But yeah, for me, it was actually, dare I say it, there's so many silver linings. For
Mm.
me,
Mm.
I'm in my part 2 and I'm loving life.
I guess there's sort of a nice synergy. Not nice. There's nothing nice about the end of a relationship, but when you are moving into like the next phase of your life, that second act, that part 2, as you call it, we call it our third act. And it's around those big birthdays, and we move into those next phases, and you get that opportunity to reinvent yourself and be who you are at your core, because you're finding yourself outside of a relationship, you're finding yourself like there's everything sort of up in the air. So why not find yourself and who you
Mm.
want to be going forward?
Yeah, I really, I mean, I'm 49, so I've got another year of being in my 40s, but I've loved my 40s.
Mm.
Even the hard bits, you look back and you go, oh, there was so much growth that
Mm.
I didn't think I wanted at the time. But you do, and you come through the other end and you just go, I'm really comfortable in my skin, who I am and where I'm at. And also I have that kind of youthful curiosity about it's just the next part. What's happening next? This
Yeah.
exciting new things. I
Mm.
get to snog people that don't look like my ex-husband. It's like it's
Exciting.
it's not signed, sealed, and delivered, and I don't know the end already. And I've come to really embrace actually not knowing the end's pretty cool, because it's good, life is good to live.
I love that. I
Absolutely.
love the idea of that, and I think that's very, it's a very cool concept and something that in midlife can feel hard, like whether you're
Mhm.
married or not, it's like that, "Oh, well, I don't know, you feel like it's the end or something but it's totally not. Of course it's not. And, as Lewis gets older and you can explore Kath and who you are in your next phase, and it's very cool. I love that. Tell us about being single now in midlife, and how does it differ from being single in your early 20s, do you have any advice for someone, who's listening who might be getting back on that horse? And what changes have you noticed from being, single young or single in your 20s to single now?
Gosh, it's hugely different. I think, the main one is the apps, and the
Mm.
fact that back in the day, I look back to when I was dating before I met Andrew, which was my mid-20s, and it was people you met through work, at a bar, at a restaurant, you're out and about. That's different. That's different, especially if you find yourself separated and you have children to sort of navigate, then you're not out every night, nor do you want to be, nor have you got any energy, and blah blah blah. But for me, I hit the apps pretty hard. Maybe 9 months after the marriage ended. Had lots of some good stories, some hilarious stories, and some horror stories. And I met some lovely guys along the way. And then I was in a relationship with a guy that I met on the apps for about 4 years. We lived together, and that sort of came to an end, and it's bumbled along here and there the last sort of couple of years. So yeah, I dip in and out with the apps now. I think, sometimes my new thing is I would really like to meet someone in real life. There does feel something harsh about judging someone purely on a photo.
Yeah.
In a way, I don't want to be judged just on a photo. And, the reality is, one of my profile photos is a shoot I did for Stella magazine. Hey, I don't look like that necessarily. I mean, I look like a version of that. But if you go on a coffee with me and you hold that picture up, you might be like, oh, quite look the same as that. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a phase where I'm really keen to meet somebody in person as opposed to
Mm.
on the app. So as my mother told me when I went home for Christmas, she's given me advice like, don't go to Edgecliff, Coles, because the sort of average age is 90. Go to Double Bay, they're younger. I'm like, thanks, dating guru Anne Mahoney. But I think for people who haven't been on the apps and they're fresh to it, definitely give them a go. As I said, I met some lovely guys. I met people that I'm still friends with. I had a serious relationship
Mm.
out of them. So definitely give them a go. Also understand they can take a lot of time to be on. And so monitor that, and also realize that, I remember I went on the apps the first time. I was like, just looking for the next love of my life. and that was not the way to go, because he wasn't on them, and you end up
Yeah.
I remember a girlfriend saying, I think you just need to have a shag. So maybe
Mhm.
you just have the intention of meeting someone for that purpose, maybe, rather than another ring on your finger. And so I was like, right, okay. And again, this has brought me half a book and lots of good stories at dinner parties. But yeah, it's
That's it.
daunting. It's daunting.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been in a long-term relationship or a marriage. The thought of even being naked with someone is like, it's a lot. And I remember when I woke up one morning next to someone I started to date, I had this panic that I was having an affair, in those kind of, you're not quite awake. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having a marital affair. And I was like, no, you are not married anymore. So sometimes your brain and reality needs to kind of sink in. But yeah,
Catch
give
up.
it a go. Give it a go.
Yeah.
But start with coffees. That's what I found when you
Mm.
sign up for a dinner date and you realize before the menu's on your table that they're not your kind of person. That's a long 2 hours. So yeah, try a coffee would be my advice.
Very sensible advice. I love that. Yeah, quick coffee date. Absolutely.
So you've been on the apps, you've had a bit of fun, you've found some great friends. What's kind of next for you? Your life, love, motherhood, career. What do you think you want to do next, and what changes you might want to make, or what's ahead for you? Do you know?
Well, I speak to psychics regularly, so they seem to give me quite the insight. Love, I am really up for being in love this year. Would really like to be in a committed relationship. I'm definitely ready. It's been a couple of years of sort of, being on my own, and I'm super romantic. I am the friend that's always like, no, but this is all good. This will happen. So I'm up for romance. Career-wise, I've got lots of different things on the go. I was lucky enough to get representation in the States. So I've got management in the States. So I'm in the middle
Ooh,
of, which is fab. I'm in the middle of
very fab.
writing my first sort of screen play, show. So I'm doing that. Still doing the pods, have a second book idea that I'm kind of sort of fleshing out at the moment. So work-wise, just more of the above. I mean, I got in my first writer's room towards the end of last year in a big TV kind of think tank in Australia, which was exciting. So for me, it's more of that. These are all the things that are on my vision board that I'm just excited to be able to experience. Who knows where it'll all land? But yeah, so I think that's what I would like ahead. And my relationship with Lou, to keep going as it's going, because we're now in the teenage years, and that is a navigation without a handbook right there. So
It
yes.
sure is.
Yeah.
Tell me about being in a writer's room. I'm so curious. What's that actually like?
Mhm.
Well, I think there was not eight of us, mixture of literary writers and then TV writers. It was, as you'd imagine, a big whiteboard, lots of sugary snacks, and lots of ideas. I'd had Benjamin Law had come on my podcast, and we'd spoken about the writer's room, and he was saying to me how it's so, you're so high and low, because you say one idea and everyone's like no, and you're like, you want to sit under the table and leave because you just feel like so stupid, and then you say something a bit quiet because is it a bit bonkers, and then everyone's like yes, and it makes the whiteboard, and you're so little heart, so proud. And I'm really glad I'd had that insight, because that's how it feels. I was definitely the most green person in this room. There were real TV kind of royalty in there, and to have ideas stick on the whiteboard, I was like, oh wow. But so it's exciting, and also it's that word curiosity, it's imagination, it's playfulness, wow, to get paid to be in a room for 3 days to make stuff up. I was like, this is where I'd like to be. So yeah, it was fabulous.
That
Wow,
sounds
how
really
exciting.
exciting.
And I think also, yeah, as a writer, you're often spending a lot of time by yourself. So it must be really nice to be in a group of creatives just going blah and coming up with fabulous, fun ideas.
Yes, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that is the only downside. I think I like people, I like the energy of people. That's why I love doing the podcast, where
Yeah.
you get to sort of have that, one-on-one, or, two of you or three of you, whatever it is. So yeah, I did enjoy that, because it can be you can be in your head a lot when you're a writer.
For sure. Have
Oh,
you read
sure.
Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld? Yeah,
Yes,
because that's so great.
yeah, I listened to I'm a bit of an audiobook
Oh, yeah.
person when
Yeah.
I walk, so I did. You know what? I just couldn't picture him and her. I couldn't get a handle on in my head how I thought they looked. So yeah, that was my only thing, but I did love it.
Yes. Is it being made into a film or something? Because I can imagine it. Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
I
who
don't
would play them.
know.
You're right. The
Yeah.
characters. It's said in a writer's room, or the woman in the book,
Yes.
for those that
Yeah.
haven't read it, is a writer, and yeah, it's really great. She's a comedy writer, and it's very
like a
funny.
Saturday Night Live kind of vibe,
Yeah, yeah,
isn't
that's
she?
Oh,
right. And
really?
it's it's a
Cool.
Yeah. It's good.
great
It is
book.
good.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
very interesting.
we'll drop the
Yeah,
name of it in the show notes.
yeah. I'll
But
pop it in the
it
show
sounds
notes for
like it's
anyone
a
that's interested.
book I need to read.
It's good. Yeah. Well, Kath, last question. We always ask every guest this question, regardless of their age. And we want to know, what is your experience or relationship with the change, AKA menopause or perimenopause? Are you currently in it? You're thinking about it? What's your vibe?
Well, I did a Mamma Mia podcast that you were both guests on, the
Yes.
456 Club.
Gosh, I love that.
And the first ep was all about menopause. We spoke to some great specialists and some people in that space. It was wonderful. And I didn't really have any symptoms at that point. And I think, like, I took on board what was said, but I think it's like anything, you don't look at adverts or stuff for cars or wedding dresses until you're there. And I think,
True.
definitely for me, it wasn't long after we did that podcast, probably about 4 months of the end of last year, I started to feel so not myself. I didn't
Ah,
have hot sweats. I didn't have night flush. I didn't have any of that. And I've
mm.
always run hot. We live in Australia. It's bloody hot. So I've thought I was perimenopausal since, being 25 in Brisbane when I moved here. So none of that had changed, but I couldn't find any joy in life,
Oh,
and
no.
Oh,
Mm,
as a joyful, half glass full, happy
mm,
person, I just thought, God, I'm really faking being happy. And then I was having these random things like joints were aching, body aches. I kept doing COVID tests. Anyway, a friend had heard Dr. Louise Newman, I think it is,
Oh, Newson. She's
Newson,
brilliant. Yeah, I love her.
amazing, on the Imperfects podcast.
Yes.
And she said,
mhm.
I think you should listen to this. And I did. And I was like, oh my God, I have all of these things except for
Yeah.
the traditional night sweats and whatever. And I hot footed it to my fabulous female doctor. And I was really glad I'd listened to that episode
It's a great
be-
app.
Yeah.
because I just think she talks a lot about estrogen, and she talks a lot about women in their 40s and 50s and up to 60s getting diagnosed with depression, getting
Mhm.
prescribed antidepressants, when actually that's not that. It's just the fact that
No.
your body doesn't have any estrogen left anymore. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not a doctor, and I understand HRT isn't for everyone. But oh my God, when I started to slap that cream on and take
Oh,
the
God.
pill, I was like, oh my God, I feel like me again, and
Amazing.
it just. Ali Dado is a dear friend, and she obviously wrote Queen Menopause.
Mm.
And I used to call her, and I'd be in tears, and I said, I said, I'm really lonely, but I don't want to be with people
Mm,
because I feel like an alien in my body. I felt
yeah.
Mm.
so out of sorts.
Wow.
And you're like, oh my God, is this how I am forever? And oh my
No.
God, it's not. Literally, I slapped my cream on. I'm like, literally, I'm like, can I put too much on? Like, can I just bathe in this estrogel or whatever it's called? And so for me, I'm sharing that with everyone in my sort of circle. Don't
Mm.
wait.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd had an ablation about 18 months ago for fibroids, so I just wasn't bleeding, which I knew would happen. My gynecologist told me. So I didn't have that measure stick of
Mm.
my periods have stopped or they haven't stopped, like, because they just weren't doing what I didn't know when
Yeah.
my periods were.
Mm.
And I was in that sort of phase of, oh, I don't think I am, and I'm like, God, I wish I'd gone on them straight away. I wish I'd gone to
Mm.
see the doctor almost straight away, because it was 4 months of not feeling like myself,
Mm.
and the brain fog, being a creative, using communication for my job, like not being able to finish a sentence, just horrible. So
Mm.
I am one very happy camper right now.
My
Love that. Love that.
psychiatrist, he calls estrogen. He says to me that estrogen's like our bullshit meter, and it helps us deal with everybody else's bullshit, not our own, but deal and cope and manage all of the other crap that flies at us. And as that leaves our body, and it doesn't leave like gradually, it's not a slow, like it leaches out,
It's
like
gone. Yeah.
it's like you wake up one day and it's gone. And he says that there's nothing you can do to accept replace it, like,
Yes.
Mm.
It's
and
yeah.
because it just, once you we'll replace it with the synthetics, or and if you can't have hormone therapies, there are other options.
Mhm.
But obviously you need to talk to your doctor and everything like that. But once you sort of recognize that that's what's happening, you can manage
Yeah.
that situation. But until you kind of call it out for what it is, yeah, I mean, we all celebrate puberty, but we don't celebrate this. And we were speaking with Jacinth Bassett from Ageism is Never in Style in the
Yep.
UK. And she was saying that while more and more people are talking about menopause and perimenopause, they're actually more fearful of it. And so we don't want that. Like, that's not what we want. We want people to kind of celebrate it and kind of go into that next phase of their life and be excited that this is something, it's something good. Like, it's exciting, and yeah, there's going to be shitty moments in it, but that's part of life, right? There's always shitty moments, but yeah.
It's a game changer that, it's as black and white for me as it's just, I thought, I think I'm depressed, and in this instance, I'm not there's anything wrong with depression or seeking help for it, but it wasn't, and I could have started taking antidepressants and it wouldn't have made any difference. So, because I was crying at everything. Show me an old person or an animal on Instagram, I was crying. I was losing my shit at Lewis. Like, from 1 second to 3 seconds, I was sounding like just a banshee, to the point that I had to say to him, you're going through teenage hormones. I think I'm going through the menopause. This is how it affects me. I'm going to see the doctor. I'm sorry. I'm being like, we really had great conversations around it.
That's cool.
I think, but you still couldn't help this rage.
No.
You'd be like, why am I raging?
Completely irrationally.
Yes, totally irrationally. And that's all gone, and I saw a naturopath for 10 months, and she said, we got to a point where she was like, I think you need to try the HRT stuff. I feel like we've got as far as we can. So I very much tried that, changed diet, had acupuncture, did all of that stuff because I wanted to try that first. And then, for me, HRT's been a game changer, and I'm so grateful that we have access to it and that it's not expensive in Australia. It's something you can manage in your budget every month.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a very important item in your budget if that's what you need and that's what the doctor recommends. So
yes.
It's funny when you were talking about that we did the 4-5-6 and Laura and I both were on it. And it kind of struck me that even though you did all of that research, even though you did the podcast, you still kind of didn't really kind of resonate with you because you weren't there. You weren't there yet. And that's something that Laura said to me weeks and weeks and weeks ago when I wrote my article about being invisible. Laura was like right there behind me, and she was beside me and behind me, pushing me to pitch the article and do the article and everything, and celebrating me when it was crazy. But Laura was saying she didn't get it until she was there, and she's kind of there-ish now, and she really starts to get it. And it's funny how we don't recognize those things until we're there.
Quite, yeah.
You need to be in it and experiencing it personally. You can obviously empathize with friends and you can listen to those things. And even Dr. Newson on that Imperfects episode spoke about how she, as a GP, didn't recognize her own symptoms of perimenopause. So, even the experts aren't always getting it. So it's okay. We're human.
That's why we're all here, and we celebrate each other, and we share our stories, right? So that we can give
help each
other
other.
people hope, and that it's not all crappy. It's not all shit.
Well, Kath, thank you so much for joining us on The Change and sharing all your stories, and go the HRT, I have to say.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Kathy on Kath, she was great, wasn't she?
I love
just a
seeing
burst
her
of energy. Yeah.
Seeing her on the screen reminded me of the big hug that I got from her the last time that I ran into her at an event, because I was lucky enough to be at an event that she was at.
Oh, you lucky duck.
I know. It was very exciting.
Yeah, no, she was great. She's very honest, very open, very funny, and her talking about being married to Andrew Johns. He's very famous here in Australia for those who are into the NRL or even aren't into the NRL. I think people still know who Andrew Johns is, and just how that big life change of becoming a Southern celebrity overnight when she was working with celebrities was quite interesting. A little bit of an insight into that experience, and even in Paris, she couldn't escape.
And I thought it was really interesting, her reflection on that, the end of her marriage, which was obviously very sad for everybody involved. But her comment where she said, there's only really one way through it, and that's through it, unfortunately. You can't go around it. You can't sugarcoat it. You can't, you just have to go through all of the feelings that come with it. And 10 years down the track, she appears to be doing pretty well,
Yeah, I think that's it. She's talking about gratitude and, how she's just out the other side, and they've obviously done as well as any couple that has divorced can do. And Lewis is obviously, he's happy and they've got a great relationship. And I think that's
Yeah.
really all you can hope for, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We all know people that have gone through relationship breakdown and divorce, and it just looks really, really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciated her honesty when she spoke about that. The thing
Her
that really
candidness about her menopause as well. I loved it.
100%. I love that. And just how she, has ended up going on to the HRT after exploring other
Yeah.
avenues, and that for her, and, under the advice of her doctor, that has
Mhm.
just been an incredible life change. And I think that's something you hear a lot, isn't it? From a lot of
Yeah.
women on this podcast, but on many other podcasts. I think it does speak to the fact that it's very effective. And
Yes.
if you are in that area and you want to seek help, it sounds like it's
Yeah.
the go. Get to the doctor and see what can be done for you. Yeah, I really thought that she was super honest. And just, I think finally, the last thing I thought I just wanted to mention was when she spoke about how coming through the divorce, knowing that, it's not the end. She called it part 2. We call it the third act, whatever, that kind of sense that when you're in midlife, sometimes you can feel so negative about, I'm getting old and everything's harder and all that. And it is, but I love that sense that she's starting again. It's all fresh. It's the second spring. It's the third act, whatever, but she had a really positive attitude. And I love that, because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I need it. I need to be slapped around the face and told that it's not all over. There's
It's
still more to
certainly
come.
not. As someone who is just a little bit further down that
Yes.
journey than you,
Mm.
it is certainly not all over, and there's a lot of joy to be had. And yeah, Kath absolutely radiated joy, and we really hope you love listening as much as we love talking to Kath.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.